Have you ever felt like no matter how deeply you love, something still feels off? Like your relationships echo the same silent ache again and again, as if love is always slipping through your fingers or arriving with a price you didn't agree to pay? What if this isn't just about bad luck, but a sign, a whisper from the universe that the love you're attracting reflects something deeper, your own unconscious patterns, your shadow, your unmet self? The truth is hard to face because it means turning the mirror toward ourselves. But that's exactly where real transformation begins. According to Jung, love is not found outside of us. It is a psychic mirror, a spiritual teacher, a cosmic force that reveals who we are beneath the surface. If you've ever wondered why you attract the same kind of partners, why love feels heavy instead of healing, or why you long for connection but fear it at the same time, this video will unlock the hidden codes behind those mysteries. What you're about to discover is not relationship advice, it's soul alchemy. We're going to explore how shadow psychology, archetypes, and the mystical dance between anima and animus shape every bond we create, and how, by walking the path of individuation, by becoming whole, you begin to attract a love that is equally whole, a love that expands instead of rescues, that frees rather than entraps. This is about more than just finding someone. It's about remembering who you are. If you felt lost in love, or like the universe is trying to tell you something through your relationships, stay with me until the end, because once you see the patterns, you can break them. And when you do, you don't just find love, you become it. You align with the spiritual frequency of connection that was always meant for you. And before we begin, a gentle reminder. Many people who watch our videos are not subscribed. If this content resonates with your soul, if it feels like a key unlocking something ancient and sacred within, subscribe now to Celestial Truths. This journey is just beginning. In the grand architecture of the psyche, love is not merely an emotion nor a fortunate coincidence between two wandering souls. It is in truth a sacred mirror, one that reflects back to us the hidden landscapes of our inner world. As Jung taught, every connection, every flutter of the heart, carries within it a symbolic message from the unconscious. The attraction we feel is rarely about the other person alone. It's about the fragments of ourselves they awaken. In love, we meet not only the other, but also our own disowned longings, buried wounds, and unmet needs. It is through this mystical interplay that the universe beckons us to deeper awareness, revealing that what we seek outside is often what we've forgotten within. Spirituality, in this context, is not escapism. It is the courage to witness ourselves through the intimate dance of human connection. Observe the patterns, that recurring desire for approval, the fear of abandonment, the tendency to idealize or diminish partners. None of this is accidental. These are projections, sacred clues left behind by the shadow self, yearning to be acknowledged. Jung believed that until we make the unconscious conscious, it will rule our lives and we will call it fate. In relationships, this dynamic becomes unmistakable. We are drawn to those who embody something unresolved within us, as if the cosmos itself orchestrates these encounters to nudge us toward wholeness. It is not uncommon for someone to fall for a partner who echoes a critical parent or triggers an ancient fear of rejection. The mystica of love lies precisely in this paradox. It hurts, heals, challenges, and transforms all at once. And it is through these symbolic mirrors that the soul whispers its desire to evolve. Love, then, is not a reward for the deserving, nor a game of luck. It is a rite of passage. It is the universe, wrapped in human skin, presenting us with opportunities to grow. When one begins to approach love as a spiritual teacher, the entire narrative shifts. That failed relationship was not a mistake. It was a message, that inexplicable connection with someone you hardly knew. A signpost. The mystical dimension of love reveals itself not in the surface drama, but in the underlying invitation to become more conscious. Through contemplative practices like journaling about your emotional triggers, meditating on your dreams, or noticing synchronistic moments between you and a lover, you begin to decode the symbols your unconscious is trying to reveal. This is not abstract theory, it is living truth, unfolding in real time. To truly experience love in its highest expression, one must descend into the underworld of the self. You must dare to see what lies beneath the projections, the old stories, the unhealed memories, the unmet inner child. And this descent is no ordinary journey. It is a spiritual pilgrimage into the very fabric of your psyche, where love is not an escape but a sacred confrontation. For many, this means facing the discomfort of intimacy, the vulnerability of being seen, and the raw truth that no one else can complete what remains fragmented within. The soul does not seek a savior. It seeks integration, and love, as mystics have long known, is one of the most potent initiations for that integration to occur. Through the other, we are guided back to ourselves. And so, the question becomes not, how can I find love, but what part of me is seeking to be seen through love? This shift changes everything. Suddenly, love is no longer a transaction. It becomes a transformation. It is the very alchemy of the soul, where the sacred meets the human, and the psyche speaks through emotion, longing, and connection. When we honor love as a reflection of the self, we no longer chase it in desperation. We magnetize it through alignment. The universe is always listening. The language it understands best is energy, intention, and authenticity. As one begins this path of introspective awakening, love stops being a mystery and starts becoming a revelation, a mystical echo of the self calling itself home. There's a strange magnetism in the people we feel inexplicably drawn to, a certain look, a tone of voice, a fleeting energy, and suddenly we're hooked. But beneath that pull, often disguised as fate or chemistry, lies a deeper truth hidden in the shadows of the unconscious. Jung taught that what we do, not own within ourselves, we project onto others. This means that our attractions, especially the intense ones, are rarely random. They are messages. The universe, through its invisible threads, brings to us not what we consciously desire, but what our soul needs to confront. In this mystical arrangement, relationships become a stage where our forgotten parts play out their ancient roles, repeating patterns, revealing wounds, and offering a mirror we can't escape. That's why some people keep finding themselves in toxic cycles, always the giver, always chasing love, always being left behind. Others fall for the same kind of emotionally unavailable partner, again and again. These aren't mere coincidences, they are projections from the shadow. The shadow, in Jungian terms, holds all that we reject, fear, or haven't yet embraced about ourselves, and because it's unconscious, it seeks expression through repetition. Life, in its infinite spirituality and symbolic order, will keep presenting the same lesson until the soul finally sees. The repetition isn't punishment, it's the universe whispering, "Look here, this is where you need to heal." There is great mystica in this realization. Imagine a seeker who continually falls for controlling partners. On the surface, it's easy to blame others. But what if this is the soul's way of revealing a repressed desire for freedom or autonomy, or a deep-seated fear of stepping into one's own power? These dynamics aren't logical. They're archetypal. Like a dream repeating itself with different symbols, the unconscious creates external dramas to push the inner journey forward. And the moment we start to see these patterns as invitations instead of curses, we reclaim the power to change the script. The cosmos is not punishing us, it's initiating us. Practices like dream journaling, reflective writing, or even quiet meditation on the emotional charge we feel in certain relationships can help unravel these patterns. Synchronicities, too, those strange coincidences that surround a connection, carry symbolic codes from the psyche, a name that repeats, a number that follows a specific person, an emotion that feels oddly familiar. These are the breadcrumbs left by the self, and when we follow them with reverence, we begin to understand that every repetitive relationship is not just a wound, it's a path, a spiritual initiation masked as emotional chaos. So the next time your heart feels pulled towards someone, or you find yourself replaying the same emotional script, pause. Ask yourself, what is this really about? What am I projecting onto this person? Because the pattern is never just about them, it's about what inside you is crying to be seen. When we pierce through the veil of projection, we begin to love with clarity instead of illusion. And from that place, true transformation begins, not just in our relationships, but in our entire perception of the universe and our place within it. In the sacred alchemy of the soul, there is no shortcut to love that truly heals and endures. Jung called this inner process individuation, the deep journey of becoming whole, of integrating the fragmented parts of ourselves into a unified self. This isn't about perfection. It's not about finally being ready for love in some idealized way. It's about knowing who you are beyond the roles, masks, and fears you've carried. True love is not a search for the missing half. It is the union of two beings who have each become complete within themselves. In this light, love becomes a mystical dance between two sovereign souls who have remembered their spiritual essence. The path of individuation begins in solitude, often in the quiet discomfort of inner conflict. One might notice it during a breakup, in the emptiness of another failed relationship, or in the aching realization that something still feels missing, even when everything seems fine. These are signals. The universe uses silence, pain, and discontent as whispers from the soul, urging us inward. When you stop chasing love outside and begin to explore the landscapes of your own psyche, you meet your shadow, your inner child, your hidden gifts. And that's where the real transformation starts. Through this introspection, meditation, dream work, shadow journaling, you begin to retrieve the lost pieces of your spirit. In this process, spirituality stops being abstract and becomes personal. The universe begins to reflect your growth through new synchronicities, unexpected insights, and a sense of inner clarity that wasn't there before. You start to notice that the partners you used to attract no longer resonate with you. The old patterns begin to dissolve, not because you've become cynical, but because you've become conscious. You are no longer trying to find someone to fill your emptiness. You are creating space for love to meet you where you already feel whole. And when this shift happens, love no longer feels like a battlefield. It feels like a sanctuary. It is important to understand that individuation is not a destination, but a continuous unfolding. There will still be doubts, fears, and triggers, but now you recognize them as part of your growth, not evidence of failure. You become less reactive and more reflective. You learn to set boundaries not out of fear, but out of self-respect. And you attract partners who mirror that same inner commitment. When two individuals meet from a place of inner wholeness, love becomes an expansion, not an escape. It becomes a shared spiritual path, grounded in truth, authenticity, and sacred presence. So, if the quest for love has brought you here, perhaps it is not because something is missing in your life, but because something is awakening in your soul. The mystic's path reveals that love is not found by running toward another, but by returning to the self. As you walk the road of individuation, you may find that the love you've been seeking all along was never truly separate from you. It was merely waiting for the moment when you'd remember your own light. And with that remembrance, the universe begins to open doors you never imagined could exist. Strangely enough, the closer we get to real love, the more resistance we often feel. It's paradoxical, isn't it? Many claim they're searching for a deep, lasting connection, yet when it finally arrives, they shrink back. Why? Because real love doesn't just caress the heart, it exposes the soul. It demands authenticity, vulnerability, and the willingness to stand spiritually naked before another being. Jung understood that the psyche is often terrified of what it truly desires, especially when it comes to intimacy. The shadow fears being seen. It clings to control, to old roles, to the comfort of superficiality. And so when real love knocks, the unconscious erects barriers disguised as doubt, sabotage, or avoidance. True love is not a safe haven from ourselves. It's a mirror that reflects both our light and our darkness. It reveals where we still wear masks, where we still guard old wounds, and for many, this exposure is too much. The spiritual path is full of seekers who unknowingly fear the very thing they seek. We crave connection, but flinch at the thought of someone truly knowing us, flaws, insecurities, and all. But this is precisely what real love asks of us, to drop the pretense and show up, fully. There is no mystique in hiding. The universe aligns us with soulmates not to affirm our illusions, but to dissolve them. This fear can manifest in countless ways. Perhaps it shows up as overthinking, a sudden loss of interest, or an unconscious pull toward emotionally unavailable partners. Maybe you felt it as an internal voice whispering, "You're not enough," or "They'll leave if they really see you." These are not signs of unworthiness. They're echoes of unhealed parts of the self, and unless brought into awareness, these fears can sabotage even the most spiritually aligned connections. But here lies the invitation. When fear arises in love, don't run, sit with it. Ask what part of you is still yearning to be accepted. There's a universe of wisdom hidden in that tremble. Real love is a spiritual fire. It purifies. It burns through delusion, ego, and false identity. It doesn't flatter. It awakens. And while that may sound daunting, it's also deeply liberating. Imagine being with someone who doesn't require you to perform, pretend, or prove anything. That is the kind of love that the soul longs for, a sanctuary where your essence can breathe. But for that to happen, you must first create that space within. Through spiritual practices like shadow meditation, honest emotional reflection, or observing how you react in moments of closeness, you start to rewire your relationship with intimacy. You begin to see love not as a threat, but as a sacred teacher. So, the next time love feels too intense, too close, too real, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, is this fear protecting me, or is it keeping me from something sacred? Because often what we interpret as fear is really a threshold, a doorway into deeper connection with both the other and ourselves. Crossing it requires courage, yes, but also trust in the universe, in the process, and in your own unfolding. And as you begin to lean into this mystery, you realize that love was never meant to be safe. It was meant to be soul-shaking, shadow-revealing, and profoundly transformative. Every relationship, whether tender or turbulent, holds within it a deeper invitation, a call to confront the parts of ourselves we've kept hidden. Jung called it the shadow, the constellation of traits, wounds, desires, and instincts we've repressed or denied. And in no other arena is the shadow more active than in our intimate connections. Why? Because love strips away the outer layers. It pushes our defenses, activates our oldest fears, and brings forth the unmet child within. The universe, in its spiritual design, orchestrates our relationships not merely for comfort, but for expansion. What feels like heartbreak is often the soul's alchemical fire, purifying what no longer serves. If someone, again and again, attracts partners who abandon them, it's not just bad luck. It's a psychic pattern playing out. A buried wound, perhaps from childhood or ancestral lineage, is calling to be healed. The mystique of love lies in this very repetition. It's not punishment, it's reflection. The person who feels not enough will often find themselves proving their worth in love, chasing what continually slips away. These experiences aren't random. They are the psyche's way of saying, look deeper. Until we acknowledge the shadow, it will choose our partners for us. Not consciously, of course, but through energetic attraction, emotional patterns, and the karmic pull of the unresolved. And yet, there is power in this awareness. When you begin to observe your own reactions, jealousy, insecurity, control, avoidance, you start to uncover what's been hidden beneath the surface. Shadow work in relationships isn't about blaming the other. It's about asking, what is this moment trying to teach me about myself? In this spiritual journey, every trigger becomes a teacher, every rupture a revelation. Practices like journaling your emotional reactions after a conflict, meditating on the archetype the other person represents, or even reflecting on recurring dreams involving partners, these become rituals of self-discovery. The universe speaks through symbols, and relationships are among its most potent ones. Spirituality, then, is not about rising above these dynamics. It's about descending into them with awareness. Love isn't light without shadow. It is both. It is the cosmic union of dualities, and only by integrating the darkness do we come to know its depth. Relationships, especially the difficult ones, are portals into our own underworld. And while painful, this descent holds the key to authentic transformation. In the symbolic language of mythology, it is Persephone descending to the underworld, Orpheus seeking Eurydice, Inanna surrendering her crown. Each story whispers the same truth. Love without shadow is incomplete. So if you find yourself in a relationship that challenges you, unsettles you, confronts you, pause before labeling it a failure. Ask instead, what is this teaching me about my unhealed parts? Because when two souls meet, it is never just for comfort. It is for awakening. And the shadow, far from being the enemy, is the sacred gatekeeper of that awakening. Once embraced, it no longer needs to sabotage love. It becomes a quiet ally, guiding you gently toward wholeness and toward the kind of relationship where both hearts are free to be fully known in both their pain and their power. In a world saturated with mantras and feel-good quotes, love yourself has become a phrase so often repeated that its essence risks being diluted. But the truth, raw, mystical and uncompromising, is that real self-love is not a slogan. It is a spiritual vow. It is the fierce decision to stand by your soul, even when the world asks you to abandon it. Jung would say that true love begins with the self, the deep core of being that whispers beneath the noise. And until you've met this self with reverence, you will seek in others what only you can give. The universe, in its divine design, withholds certain kinds of love until you've built a sanctuary within. Loving yourself is not about indulging the ego. It's about making space for the soul. It's about sitting with your pain without running, honoring your boundaries without guilt, and recognizing your worth without needing to perform. This kind of love is deeply spiritual because it reconnects you with the sacredness of your existence. Mystica is found not only in temples or starlit skies, but in the quiet, everyday rituals of self-respect. Saying no to what diminishes you. Letting go of relationships that mirror your fears instead of your truth. Listening deeply to your own intuition. These are all acts of spiritual alignment with the universe, and they are the soil in which healthy love can grow. The irony is that most people chase love to escape themselves. They seek someone to rescue them from the silence, from the emptiness, from the shadow. But the silence isn't your enemy. It's your guide. It's in that silence that the self begins to speak. The emptiness isn't a void. It's a space waiting to be filled with truth. And the shadow? It's the forgotten part of your soul longing to return home. When you begin to cultivate a relationship with yourself, through solitude, reflection, symbolic meditation, or even tracking emotional patterns, you begin to shift. Your frequency changes, and the universe responds to that frequency with people and experiences that reflect your new level of self-honor. This kind of self-love is not passive. It's a daily act of inner leadership. It's choosing not to beg for crumbs when you were born to feast at your own table. It's knowing that love from others can be beautiful, but it is not the source of your value. Imagine the strength of a soul that no longer fears solitude because it has become its own beloved. That is the vibration that attracts partners who do not come to complete you, but to walk beside you in freedom. That is the energy of wholeness, where love is not an escape, but an extension, a reflection of the inner harmony you've cultivated. So if you've been wondering why certain relationships don't feel fulfilling, or why the same painful dynamic keeps resurfacing, the answer may not lie in the other. It may lie in the level of love you've cultivated for yourself. Real self-love is not something you practice after finding love. It is the very path to it. It is a mystical alignment with the universe, a declaration that you are worthy of love, that honors your light and your shadow. And when you live from that space, love no longer needs to be chased. It arrives like a sacred echo, drawn to the sanctuary you've become. Within each of us, regardless of gender, there lives a sacred duality, a divine dance between the inner feminine and the inner masculine. Jung named these forces anima and animus, and they are not simply psychological constructs, but archetypal energies rooted in the collective unconscious. The anima is the soul image of the feminine in a man, often embodying intuition, receptivity, feeling. The animus is the soul image of the masculine in a woman, carrying reason, direction, and inner authority. When these energies are not integrated, we unconsciously project them onto others, falling in love with what we have not yet developed within ourselves. But when we integrate them, we no longer seek completion outside. We become whole. Consider how many relationships are born from a craving, a pull towards someone who embodies what feels missing. The tender, poetic man attracted to a fierce, decisive woman, the grounded, logical woman drawn to a sensitive, emotionally rich man. On the surface, this may seem romantic, but it's often the psyche's attempt to restore inner balance through outer union. Yet the universe, in its quiet wisdom, does not allow us to outsource wholeness for long. These relationships eventually press on the very wounds that created the imbalance. If we refuse to evolve, The bond begins to collapse. The mystical lesson here is clear. The other was never meant to complete us. They were meant to reveal the work we have yet to do. To integrate these forces is not to blur them into sameness, but to allow each their rightful place in the psyche. The anima might show up in a man through dream symbols, creative inspiration, or emotional depth that calls him to slow down and feel. The animus might awaken in a woman as a firm voice in moments of decision, an urge to speak her truth, or visions of inner purpose. Through spiritual practice, dream, interpretation, archetypal meditation, dialogue with inner figures, we begin to build conscious relationships with these energies. And as we do, our outer relationships become less about need and more about resonance. Imagine a union between two individuals who have each met their inner feminine and masculine. Their love is not based on projection, but presence. They do not seek to fix each other, but to witness. This is not a fantasy. It is a spiritual possibility. It begins the moment we stop chasing an ideal partner and start embodying the very qualities we admire. When a woman cultivates her inner strength, she no longer seeks it through dominance. When a man opens to his inner sensitivity, he no longer fears intimacy. The universe responds to this integration with mirrored experiences, partners who reflect our balance, not our lack. So ask yourself, with honesty and reverence, which energy within me have I neglected? Which have I over-identified with? Where have I sought in lovers what I've yet to claim in myself? The answers are not always easy, but they are profoundly liberating. For in the end, love is not about polarity, it's about harmony. And when anima and animus dance within us, we become a vessel through which love flows freely, not from longing, but from mystical alignment with the self and the universe itself. So many souls wander this earth believing love will save them from loneliness, from emptiness, from the ache of their own forgotten essence. But here lies one of the most profound illusions of the human heart. Love is not salvation, it is expansion. It was never meant to rescue, but to reveal. Jung knew this deeply. When we chase love as a way to escape ourselves, we fall into a spiritual trap. We invite codependency instead of connection, longing instead of alignment. Real love, mystical, whole, and transformative, only arrives when we stop begging the universe to fill our voids and instead begin to embody the fullness of who we already are. You see, a relationship is not a refuge from your pain. It is a mirror for your evolution. The idea that a partner will finally bring peace, happiness, or wholeness is a story sold to us by culture, not by the soul. The universe is far more interested in your expansion than your comfort, and so it sends you partners who will activate you, challenge you, confront you, not to punish, but to awaken. In this sacred dance, love becomes the fire that burns away illusion, and the light that reveals what's ready to grow. This is the true spirituality of love, not dependency but awakening. When love comes from lack, it binds. When it comes from wholeness, it liberates. Two people who have each walked the inner path, who have faced their shadows and learned to hold themselves through pain, they do not use each other as crutches. They walk together as companions on a shared journey of becoming. Their love is not a bandage, but a blessing. And in that love, there is space. Space to be. Space to evolve. Space to fall apart and return again, not in fear but in trust. The universe speaks through this kind of love. Fluid, expansive, aligned with the rhythms of the soul. So how do we get there? By refusing to abandon ourselves, by letting go of the need to be saved, by listening to the silence that comes in moments of solitude and asking, what am I here to become, with or without someone beside me? Practices like writing down what you seek in a partner and then embodying those qualities yourself can turn longing into alignment. By meditating on the kind of love that honors your truth, you begin to vibrate at the frequency of what you desire, and the universe, always listening, begins to respond, not with fantasy, but with resonance. In the end, love is not the destination. You are. And when you arrive fully in yourself, integrated, alive, aligned, the kind of love you attract no longer feels like a solution. It feels like a celebration, a continuation of the mystical unfolding of your soul in communion with another equally sovereign being. This is love as expansion. This is the kind of love that does not chain, but sets you free to become everything you were meant to be, in harmony with the universe and in sacred union with your own spirit. So now I ask you, what part of your soul have you been seeking through others? What shadow have your relationships been trying to reveal? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your experience might awaken something powerful in someone else walking this same path. If this message spoke to your heart, don't leave without subscribing to Celestial Truths and activating the notifications. That's how you make sure the next key, the next insight, the next step in your spiritual unfolding reaches you at the right moment. And if you're ready to go even deeper, the next video that's about to appear will guide you through the hidden forces of the shadow self and how it's secretly shaping your destiny. I'm grateful to walk this journey with you. See you in the next revelation. This is Celestial Truths.